Zhana Biespyachuk from BBC Ukraine, thank you for your time. Let's turn to the Middle East next, where negotiations for a ceasefire and hostage deal in Gaza are set to continue into their third week. President Biden spoke with his Egyptian counterpart, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, on Friday, as both countries, along with Qatar, push Israel and Hamas to accept the terms of a deal brokered last month. Now, it comes in a week where the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has been meeting with regional leaders in his 9th trip to the Middle East since the conflict began over 10 months ago. Hamas has so far refused to directly take part in the talks in Cairo, saying that the Israelis have been acting in bad faith. Well, let's speak to our reporter in Cairo, Abdel Basir Hassan. Now, when it comes to these negotiations, we're always asking about the status of ceasefire talks, but what do we know today, especially when it comes to a prospective summit next week?
Yes, we have just learned from media that Hamas is expected to send a delegation, a high-level delegation, to Cairo, expectedly, as reporters say, today, to discuss the next step after the negotiations held in Cairo over the last 24 hours or 48 hours at least, on what's called a new plan. Israeli media have reported that Israel introduced what can be called a map of the positions where the Israeli troops are expected to be deployed during the implementation of the first phase of any planned agreement. This has been delivered to the Egyptians. The Egyptians are expected to deliver it to Hamas to discuss it. What it says that Israel is ready to withdraw from certain parts from Philadelphia corridor. It's a strip along the border between Egypt and Gaza and the Gaza Strip. Israel has been holding or occupying this strip since early May and refusing to withdraw from it. That's why it has been a major obstacle against reaching what can be called a compromise between at least the Egyptians and the Israelis over the last few days. Seemingly, the pressure from the United States have gained some fruit. Israel reportedly, or Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, reportedly agreed to a suggestion from the United States. Israel can withdraw from certain points, from certain positions at the corridor to try to pave the way for what can be called a compromise in order to pave for a progress in the talks.
Right, Abdel Basir, it's an important point you just made there, update that you're getting from local media that Hamas would participate in these talks now. Could you just put that into context for our viewers of how big a development that would be?
No one can expect what can be done in Cairo since Hamas hasn't changed its position, which has been announced like a few days ago. It needs complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Strip. It needs permanent or complete ceasefire. It needs a free movement of Palestinians from south to north of Gaza. It hasn't changed these conditions. Therefore, we cannot expect what can be achieved next in Cairo, especially as well, we don't know if the Egyptians will also agree on a partial withdrawal of Israeli troops from the corridor at the border with Egypt and between Gaza and Egypt. We don't know what Egypt will do because Egypt has also on Monday stressed that it will not accept a complete withdrawal from the corridor and from Rafah crossing. Therefore, we don't know we can't expect what's going on in the few coming hours, but at least what's described by Israel and the US, there are some sort of progress. The Qataris, the Egyptians, who are the other two mediators, didn't comment, and we are still waiting for a Hamas response to what is called new positions of the Israeli troops in the Strip.
All right, Abdel Basir Hassan, thank you for that update. Now, of course, once we hear more about those reports Abdel Basir Hassan mentioned, that we will bring you more details. But meanwhile, Palestinians are protesting new Israeli takeovers of their privately owned land on a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the occupied West Bank. This month,